Welcome to the Past Life Regression radio show and Spirituality for Souls. I'm Jonathan York, your host over the next 2 hours of this live call-in internet radio show based on the work I do in my private practice as a past life regression and life between lives regression therapist and spiritual counselor. We are streaming live here at the Go Network every Wednesday from 7 to 9 p.m. You can also catch us at Facebook Live, or if you'd like, you can always go to my website, jonathanyorks.com or mysoulmyself.com, and you'll open to the opening page, and you'll scroll down. It's the advertisement for the show. You'll see the links below. Just click on the links, and you will come to the show. Or if you want, you can listen directly on your phone just by dialing 641-552-8117, and you'll tune in directly to the show, and you can take us on the go. So welcome to tonight's show. The number here is 857-366-5444. This is a no agenda show, no agenda Wednesday, meaning ask questions if you have questions, call for comments, call for anything that you have or you want counsel. Any reason to call. This is a wide open show with no real agenda because it's the Halloween show. And if you want to watch Halloween stuff, there's plenty of places to watch Halloween stuff. You can also message me on Facebook or text me on my phone at 617-875-6686. That goes directly to my phone. As far as Facebook and my phone texting, I will see those during the break, and I'll answer the questions from that point on. So again, welcome to the show. But before I begin, before we move into the show, I have to say happy birthday to my mother, Eleanor Yorks. She is born on October 31st. As my father would say, she's the witch of the family. So happy birthday, Mom. Love you. Okay. As far as the show today, what we do at the beginning is we do a recap of last week's show and some unfinished business. And what I'm discovering in these segments is this. These segments will take about 10, 15, 20 minutes usually, and then we'll take a break after these initial opening segments. And then we're going to move into the more meat part of the show. People have sent me some questions. I will be answering their questions on this show. And that segment will take generally around 40, 45 minutes, thereabouts. This is what we're discovering. We'll take another break after that, and then we'll go into the last probably half hour thereabouts of the show. And then if ever need be or time be, we'll do a quick wrap up at the end if that's the consideration. But right now, in this moment, a quick recap. Now let me explain a couple of things. One is, last week, when I say quick recap, what I mean is I'm just not going to give you back what it is that we've already talked about in last week's show. Because what I do is I review these shows, and I wonder, was I clear here? Was I not clear here? You know, how can I emphasize a point? And so what I do is I just give you a quick rundown of even the insights and clarifications based on last week's show and what I come to see. Before we begin there, I started last week's show by someone sending me a question about the purpose of the show. And this is always up front. This is the purpose of the show. To help you see your life through your spiritual eyes, to help you process and understand it through your spiritual mind as a soul. Because this show is absolutely biased. It's biased to the consideration that we are souls living our human lifetimes. And not only are we living in them, we are the minds of these machines. We are the choice makers in the end. And there's many programs where I talked about that context. Please go back and listen to them. We're going to talk about that as well in this program as well, just a little bit as well. But the idea is that you are a soul being human. You are here fulfilling a purpose. You are working on a life lesson. And when you leave this lifetime, you will go to the spiritual dimension, and you will come back in a future lifetime, absolutely. And the one thing that is consistent through every lifetime is you. You are the presence in every life. And so this show is meant to be a reminder of that. This show is meant to be the forum, a place where you can come to once a week. I call it the spiritual spa for the soul in that sense, because it helps remind you. You can immerse your thinking this way into the consideration and realization that I am a soul living my human life. And whatever's around me, as the conditions and the challenges and everything is such, that the bottom line is it is all intended to help me grow. There is purpose and meaning to all of this. And so the show is a weekly reminder of that realization, that you are a soul being human, truly, and that one day you will leave this life, and one day, at some point, you will come back, just like you have already. That's why I do the work I do, because these discoveries seem to fit more into the paradigm of what life is telling us than anything else that may be deviant from that view. So welcome, my spiritual friends. Welcome to the moments, the time, the place, the spa, where we can all immerse into the realizations, and then allow yourself to be in that experience, in that presence of your spiritual self within your human life. So, welcome. And as well, I just want to move along now quickly to the recap of last week's show. Last week's show, I talked about life lessons and that the lessons of souls. And I mentioned one thing: we do not repeat life lessons. That is not how it works. You either learn a life lesson in the lifetime you're in, or you'll learn it afterwards when you process it in the spiritual dimension, in the afterlife. Now, if you learn the life lesson in the lifetime, then it comes back as a positive attribute in another lifetime. If you do not learn the life lesson in the life, and you learn it afterwards within the spiritual dimension, then it comes back perhaps as a negative attribute, meaning a condition that challenges you. And as you work on this negative attribute of that next lifetime, you're actually fulfilling the life lesson associated to that negative attribute. Now, it is not the same life lesson. And I went through some case studies of some clients whose life lessons and what they were and how they advanced through them. And I distinguished something, and I want to be clear: the difference between a life lesson and life purpose. And I'm going to add one more thing: life mission. And they are not the same. A life lesson is what you're learning every lifetime you're working on a lesson. You don't repeat the lesson, you just bring it as attributes to the next. And I'll make a quick mention of what that is, and clarifying another thing from last week. Your life purpose, that's your selfhood. That's what you're doing to grow yourself. And in doing that, you're working on an aspect of yourself. And every lesson is meant to bring to you an attribute within your psyche as a soul, within your being, that will help contextualize the journey you are on and the self-growth experience you are in. And I talked about my past lives. I've done like a dozen of these past life regressions. I know seemingly my very first past life, and I know a big moment in a past life in the 1800s as a Native American. And I talked about that on last week's show, and I talked about how all these lifetimes I went through, all the lessons that I learned, helped nurture this inner experience of my being that was required to have all the experience to gain knowledge. And in doing that, I was able to move through and fulfill my life purpose, which was self-acceptance. So, life lessons, each life is a new life lesson. Life purpose, that's the big selfhood growth. Now, life purpose versus life mission. A lot of clients come to me and they say, I want to know my life purpose. And I get what they're saying. What they're saying is, I want to know what I'm meant to do here in life. Well, you're meant to grow, of course, and you're meant to grow your selfhood, of course, and you're meant to learn a lesson, of course. But I think what a lot of people are wondering is, how do I bring it into my life? How do I bring it into the collective? How do I bring me into the collective of life? So I feel fulfilled, so it feels purposeful. And that's your life mission. When you work on the life lesson and you're advancing your life purpose, when you're on that path, then you bring it into the collective. Your collective could be your family, it could be your neighborhood, it could be a larger community, it could be the world, whatever your collective is. When you bring yourself into the collective, when you're on the path of your purpose, as you are learning your lesson, that is your life mission. So just a little distinction there for everybody in regards to that. And there's something else I want to mention. I talked about one case study of this young man who was growing up in a family of a lot of high achievers, and he was a musician. And people were confused in his family about him being a musician. And the reason why I bring this up in the story, because he was really struggling on the journey that he was on. He just couldn't live the same life as everybody else in the culture of his family. And he really wanted to emphasize himself and go for the life of being a musician. And he went back to a past life, a Native American life, where he was raised within a family system there, within the cultural conditions of having a different role, a hunter role. But he ended up moving away from that and being mentored by somebody, another person who was a drummer for these tribes. Now, drummers were given very high regard, very special places in these native cultures. So in that way, even though he emphasized and went away from what was traditionally his role, he was being guided, mentored, and eventually accepted in his life as he pursued. And the lesson was to be him in every moment. The purpose was self-value. But now he has it in this life. And what I'm saying here is what we do is we take aspects, conditions from prior lifetimes, contextual conditions, and we bring them into a present life or another lifetime. So now instead of a tribe, his tribe is his family. Instead of a collective around them being mentored by one, he doesn't have a mentor in this life. He has to be his own mentor. He's upped the difficulty factor. Now no one's going to help him along the way. He has to mentor himself. And by doing that, he emphasizes his self-value. The thing is, it's already a strength within him. It's a positive attribute because he learned it in a lifetime. And now he knows it as a strength in the present life that he can utilize, that he brings with him to help him further the lesson he is on. So I just wanted to clarify that one in a bit as well. I also spoke of, at the end of the show, I talked about how can you discover your life lesson. And I talked about it going through a kind of question and answer movement in the mind. You know, a very simple kind of process. And I did simplify it because when I do it in session, it's much more complex, much more detailed. We have much more dialogue, much more exchange. But what I told you all is that as far as trying to discover your life lesson, the first thing you need to be aware of is your nature. Now, how do you know your nature when it comes to a life lesson? You know your nature when it comes to seeing it expressed in a moment of stress, and you feel this aversion coming through you. And I talked much about my version and me as an example. Why? Because as I say, I'm an ordinary being, even though we are extraordinary in our beingness, and we are extraordinarily ordinary. My life and my journey is the same that we are all on, yet uniquely yours as mine is uniquely mine. So in that way, I use me as an example quite often because I've done a lot of this work. I mean, I'm amazed how this all fits together, and I like to share it with you so that you can get a sense of how this does work when someone has done multiple past life regressions, when someone has done a few life between lives regressions, based on the consideration that doing one past life regression will give you the experience. But if you're looking for knowledge, well, that's another story, and we'll talk more about that because there's a question about that later in the show. So the first thing I told you to do in as far as discovering your life lesson is to know your nature and see it in the moment of stressor and see what the aversion is. And we're talking existential stuff here. We're not talking, like I said last week, I don't like the cold, so I don't go out in the cold. I have an aversion to cold weather. And I actually do. I actually do. And that may have karmic significance and all that, and it does in many ways, but it's not my life lesson. So an example of an aversion. Let's say you're somebody who works at a job and you're being kind of oppressed by a higher up, your boss, or maybe a colleague, one who has a little power over you. And now you're conflicted because you don't want to be a rabble-rouser, you don't want to be a troublemaker. And so you know in some ways that you don't know how much you can tolerate this. And so you have a choice. Do I tell somebody or not? Do I bring this to a higher ups or bring it to HR? Who do I bring it to? But you find yourself resisting this aversion to doing it. And the aversion is always associated with a fear. And that fear comes up as a condition. All you have to do is note it. And we went through a little exercise about actually placing yourself in that moment of aversion when your nature came forward. And as you do, you find that what the fear is associated, it's always a fear of outcome, a fear of something, repercussion, effect. It's always about the effect. Because if I make this choice and I cause something, if I actually go and use my voice and let somebody know that I'm being mistreated, this could come back to haunt me. This could hurt me. I may be seen in a negative light. So I don't do it. And what happens, you continue, and your oppression continues. And as you go on and discover the fear, as I ask you what the thoughts are associated with the feeling of fear, notice what you're fearful of, and the feelings. Because the thoughts. Because feelings are like suitcases. We open them up and they are filled with thoughts. And then I told you to look at the conditions surrounding you, the conditions of your life. And what emphasizes is aversion within you. And notice the challenge. It is very likely all that together will help you see the lesson that you are learning in that moment, and likely in life itself. So, a quick little recap of that. I just wanted to go over it. I just want to take a quick look at my notes to see if I had missed anything. Oh, I did. I wanted to clarify something. Last week when I talked about myself, I talked about I came into this life with no community, and that is an inaccurate statement. See, I am working on community. I'm working communion and communication. I spoke of that last week in this, as I talked about life lessons and my relation to how it looks throughout my lifetimes and the present life as well. And I actually came into a community. I was born in the 1960s. I was during a time when we grew up in a neighborhood of 300 families in this little enclave called Deer Park. And doors were always open. Kids were always running around. I can still see 8-year-old me out with my pajamas in a warm summer evening, and everybody's out, and all the parents, and we're all socializing and engaging. I was conditioned in this life to have a positive feeling early in my life in relation to community. Why? Because as I went into my life, and as I started to explore the what life is for me, as I went to look for and discover my life philosophy, and I talked all about that in prior programs, I found that myself in community, that there's a contrast. That the way I think is not common. The way that when you say that you are a soul being human, that kind of a paradigm, that view. I mean, it's not like people don't say, oh, I have a soul, but the idea that you are a soul being human, that you reincarnate through lifetimes, that you go to an afterlife and process and plan your prior lifetimes so that you can learn through further life lessons to grow your life purpose, your selfhood. I mean, I get it, you get it, we listen to it. And for some, it's a resonance, it's an agreement. For others, it's a curiosity. For others, it's a total contrast. They just can't find themselves in that place. So in that kind of a recognition, I realized that, no, I did have a community. Certainly, I was conditioned for it growing in. I just wanted to clarify. But as I went along, I moved away. I left home at 17 to go to college. I left home again at 19 to leave down to go live down south. I left home at 26 again to go live out west. I had spent more time away from home in my adult years than I had spent at home. Back here in the East Coast. The irony is my greatest growth has probably come here in the East Coast when I did come back home, because face it, there's nothing that challenges us more than the intimate relations of our life, the family systems we grow in, and the challenges they bring out through us. So I just wanted to communicate that the idea of community, I did have a community growing up. It was great, and it's conditioned within me as a very positive experience. And actually brings me into why perhaps I now engage in community positively. I feel really good about it. It's a fun way of communing with others. Okay, so that's the recap, a little clarification, and now a little unfinished business. Somebody asked me, why do you want people to call in? Good question. And I've been emphasizing this now for like weeks. And I understand if people aren't comfortable calling in, I get it. But the idea behind calling in is I want you to be able to hear how I help people process their thoughts, how I help them see their lives through their spiritual eyes, and understand it through their spiritual mind, how I contextualize things through the idea of how we would be in relation to life, how life operates in our relation to this operating system we call life through dimensions, what I call of self. And I talked about that in the show prior to last week, about the spirituality of the soul. That the soul is a name we give to an entity that we call, but we are beings of life expressed through 4 dimensions of self, the best as I can best understand it. One self, which helps us understand the relationship to each other, it's all oneness. The divine self, which helps us understand the intention of each life we live. The creator self, which helps us understand our capacity, and our neural self, which helps us understand our conditions. And I spoke all about that in the Spirituality of the Soul. And all these programs are meant to be more introductory than anything else. At some point, we'll go more deeply into them all. Absolutely. So as far as why would I want this to be a call-in show? One, I want this to be a community. I want this to be a forum. I want people to feel comfortable to call in with questions if they have questions. I want to be able to answer these questions. I want you to call in to correct me if I am wrong. But as I ask, always do kind corrections, not critical corrections. In that, please, because my knowing is going to grow. I only know what I know in this moment. And as I tell people, with all this work I do, everything I know is an educated guess. I just took the knowledge and the information that I've obtained over the years and the experiences I've had in relation to the information I've obtained, and it's become this kind of fullness of knowing. Do I know for certain 100%? Well, I'm as close to that as I can be with allowing my knowing to grow, looking for new information, allowing new information to come to me. And as long as I remain curious, its irony is new information does come to me. So yeah, I want people to call in. Call in if you have an issue or a problem. I'm more than happy to help you with it. Call in if you have questions about past lives or life between lives, regression in the afterlife, about our journey as souls, about the spirituality of our being as souls within your human lifetime. And these questions down the next part of the program are going to be speaking to some of that as well. So, as far as conclusion of our first little segment here, the call-in part is meant to be an exchange I want to have with you, so you can see how I engage with my clients. And again, share stories if you want. Anything that is everything is worthy of consideration, and I welcome it. But I also understand if people choose or do not call in, no problem. It means I'm getting my points across and being as clear as I can be. And you're going, I get you, Jonathan. I understand. As I said last show, my background really in speaking in community is more academic in that way. I taught for a while at Cal State University. And, it's not that I was a big professor or anything, but my experience was more lecture hall type, having much more people and speaking in that way. So that's why I say if you have a question, it's like raising your hand when you call in, when you text me, or when you send me a Facebook message. It's all good. Now, if you have to leave in this segment, know that after this segment, know that this is also recorded so you can watch it on Facebook Live. I am very close to getting all the shows on a YouTube channel called the Past Life Regression Radio Show. I'm also going to be having them on some sort of a podcast site, like an iTunes or something, where you can just listen to them. As far as accessing the program, you can always go to my website, jonathanyorks.com, or mysoulmyself.com. We are here every Wednesday, 7 to 9 p.m. If you have questions and you can't call in, you can always call me at 617-857-6686 or send me an email. Contact me through my website. Schedule a time to talk. These conversations, I call them initial consults, are totally complimentary. There's no charge for this. Usually they last about 20 minutes depending. And I'm more than happy to share information with you if that's what you seek. So, this is the Past Life Regression Radio Show. I'm Jonathan Yorks. Thank you for tuning in. Next segment, the questions that were asked on No Agenda Wednesday. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. See you soon.
Have you always wanted to make your own podcast? Or had dreams of becoming the next social media influencer? Don't let office space and equipment be what gets between you and your dreams. New studio space is now available through the Go Network. The Go Network is a multimedia broadcast company that currently hosts live radio shows and podcasts. With microphones to fit all guests, the ability to video record interviews, a stage for band performances, and an editing suite to put your audio and video content to the next level. The Go Network will provide assistance with producing, editing, sponsorship outreach, marketing, and more. You can create the podcast or web series you want with the lower price tag. Visit our studio location in Norwood or our audio suite in Canton. For more information, call us at 857-445-0424 or email us at info@gonet.com. That's info at GEAUXNET.com.
Has your computer seen better days? Is it always freezing and lagging? Are you constantly plagued with pop-ups and viruses? Are you not able to get any work done? You don't need a new computer. You need Phoenix Technology Support. With just one call to Phoenix Technology Support, you will never have to stress over the hassles of taking your computer to a repair shop again. Just leave your computer right where it is and let us come directly to you. Phoenix Technology Support has over 10 years of experience in the industry of customer support and IT solutions, and it's the best place for help with all of your home or business electronics. From gaming systems to tablet setups, smartphones to smart TVs, even business servers and emails. We will help set up or troubleshoot almost any technology in your home or office. So next time you think your technology is at the end of its life, have it rise from the ashes like a phoenix by calling Phoenix Technology Support at 617-658-3240. That's 617-658-3240, or go to www.phoenixtechboston.com.
Aren't you tired of your plain white walls? Do you ever wonder why you feel uninspired at the office or feel like your home lacks character? It's always the same boring walls over and over again. Well, it's time for a change. Visit walldecore3d.com and order wall panels that will turn your walls into beautiful and extravagant looking accent walls. The 3D wall panels give an extra dimension and complement just about any room. Their current selection includes plant fiber wall paneling, MDF wood wall panels, mosaic real wood paneling, and thin slate stone veneer. Remember, that's walldecore3d.com. Order now and add some depth to your life.
If you're just hearing about Monk Therapeutic Air for the first time, it's a recyclable diffuser that promotes mood change and life-enhancing effects through our custom blends of essential oils and the ancient practice of aromatherapy. Monk is the simplest aromatherapy device in history. You don't have to know anything about essential oils. We do all that for you. Simply pick the way you want to feel, open your Monk, and breathe in as your Monk diffuses an eclectic blend of essential oils and wild plant extracts. Monk is available in 7 different blends, all of which are organic, natural, and free of nicotine, tobacco, or artificial chemicals. Visit monq.com to learn more.
Are you in need of stickers, be it for personal or business use? Then you need to go to stickeru.com right now. That's stickeryou.com. Sticker U is passionate about providing you and your business with the highest quality custom stickers, labels, decals, and iron-ons. They can even make you temporary tattoos. If you want to stick out from the competition, then you need Sticker U, as Sticker U provides the best platform in the world to create custom products that make you stick.
So who are the real original housewives? Well, Sarah, Esther, Mary, and Ruth. Proclaim this and other Bible references on a shirt at onebodyonespirit.com. One Body, One Spirit is a Christian-themed clothing store for ladies and men that allows believers to express their faith, glorify God, and start conversations through something as simple as a t-shirt. Plus, a portion of every purchase is donated to charities. Their website is spirit.com to view their clothing selections. onebodyonespirit.com.
In a world filled with many distractions, would it be incredible to find a way to get lost in your own choosing? Do you love to hear Chris audio from your favorite podcasts? Have you ever felt like the soundtrack to a movie or video game would sound greater if there was a better way to deliver sound? Bear Dynamic closed-back studio headphones are a perfect tool for any sound enthusiast. Plug in your Bear Dynamic headphones and go on an audio escape. The Bear Dynamic DT770 Pro headphones are a favorite amongst music producers, sound engineers, and broadcasters all over the world. If you're not prepared to compromise on studio sound, visit www.beardynamic.com. That's www.beardynamic.com and get your own pair now. Whether for home or on the go, it is the right product for every need.
I'm Jonathan Yorks, and you're listening to the Past Life Regression Radio Show. I'm Jonathan Yorks, and in this segment of our program, I'm going to answer some questions that people had asked me, and I so appreciate so much that people actually sent me some questions. Thank you very much. It really helps out because this is a question and answer show today, and it would be kind of hard if I didn't have questions to answer. So thank you. And the first question I'm going to answer this evening is from Bob, and Bob asks a really good question. Bob writes to me, a topic of discussion between myself and a couple of others lately has been about the ego. I was hoping you could spend some time discussing the ego and how it relates to our spiritual path. Does it get in the way? Is it a hindrance? Is it necessary? How much ego is necessary, if any, etc.? Good question, Bob. Thank you thank you so much for asking. All right, let me get started with this. So, let's break this question down for you, Bob. The first thing is, discussing the ego and how it relates to our spiritual path. Okay. First, the first thing we need to do is understand ego. Consider this. You have two experiences of ego that are operating through any lifetime. Your spiritual ego and the human ego. Now, your spiritual ego is your character as a soul. Now, because you are individuated from life, a unique frequency field within life, not only are you unique in the energetic matrix of your being, but you are unique in the representation of the consciousness of life depicted in your spiritual character as a soul. And your energetic matrix is like your filter systems through everything in which you experience and are in relation to. So at any time you are affected or stimulated from something that seems external to you, it is going to get filtered through your energetic matrix, through your unique spiritual ego and the character of your spiritual self. So we have a spiritual ego. And the spiritual ego is what we grow through each lifetime. It is the I am, the one that says, I am is you, the soul. And as you've entered into your very first lifetime, you've began to discover your nature, your spiritual self. And as you did, you developed it through lifetimes, through human ego. So, what is the human ego? The human ego is your brain. Simple. That's all it is. Your brain, the neural self, that is the ego that you hear described in psychology. And this human ego is a conditioned experience. Now understand, like your spiritual ego has its own uniqueness, so does your human ego. Your human ego is a conditioned ego. It's the neural self. And this human ego of yours, this brain, has a temperament. Everybody's brain does. And this human ego of yours has a psychology, a foundational, fundamental psychological relationship to life. It is a survival beast. The brain is a survival organ. It doesn't get to this life form unless it knows how to survive. And it survives by perceiving threat. And your human ego, from the time when you were in the womb, getting neurologically connected, and junctions and synapses were moving around, to about 6 years old, before your prefrontal cortex kicked into gear, all you could do was absorb the stimuli of the environments around you, and as they translated themselves through the temperament of your brain, and they became the conditions of your mind in this life, your likes and dislikes, your fears and your faiths, your loves and your hates. Now, your human ego is essential. It is absolutely necessary. We are not here to eliminate the human ego. It doesn't work that way. It is our guidance system. It is chosen by us. The mental, emotional, and physical characteristics of every lifetime you've lived, of every human self you have been, of every human ego in which you have been filtered through, each one has been essential to affect you through the conditions of that particular human ego, that brain that you were filtered through in the lifetime you were in. But it all depends on your relationship to it. If you see your human ego as oppositional, then you will have oppositional experience with it, and you will find conflict and tension and psychological malady. But when you contextualize it, when you realize that your human ego is not you, It is a filter through which you exist within. And you feel the conditions. And the feelings get translated into thought. And the thoughts, depending on the sophistication of your mind, become quite adept in constructing the thoughts that will validate the feelings and continue to feed into the human ego self. So, as far as is the human ego essential? Yes, it is. Now, is it what drives my car? No. It is the conditions. And my responsibility as a soul is to differentiate me from the conditions of my human ego experience. How do I do that? Well, you do that through understanding how the human ego communicates. And I gave this when we talked about the spirituality of the soul, and I talked about the neural self. When I spoke of initially was that these organisms, that the brain didn't come fully developed. These came from, we emerged from single-cell organisms in that sense. And as we became more adept, the organism became more adept at survival, it had to perceive the threat of its environment. And it had to be able to process threat quickly. And it had to be able to identify threat out of anything else that was going on within its experience. So the body has its own consciousness through sensations, pleasure and pain. But the human ego translates pleasure and pain into feelings and thoughts. And as it does, the pain orients us towards fears and the pleasure towards joys. And then we construct our thoughts around these. So how can I identify my human ego when it's active? How can I know when it's driving the car? How can I see its guidance? Well, you'll know it through negativism. And you'll hear the negativistic thoughts in your mind. I can't, it won't, they never will be. Well, the brain is naturally negativistic. And I described, and I actually hadn't looked it up this today, but I will in a future show about the research that has demonstrated that for every negative thought that is neurologically wired into the brain, it takes 5 positive ones, 5 positive events of equal or greater intensity to offset that negative neural wiring. The brain is innately negativistic. And in doing that, the way you identify when it is driving the car is by who's playing the radio. And you know who's playing the radio by hearing the messages through the radio. When you hear negativism that is keeping you from the fullness of your being, that is not you. That is your human ego. And you can identify it because you can observe it and you can listen to the thoughts that come through it. You feel the feelings. The thoughts give it away. What's underlying all the feelings. As far as that, there's a second aspect that you can help identify when your human ego is active through defense mechanisms, through denial, doubt, minimization or diminishment, all the way up to emotional rationalization. Why, based on emotional evidence, something will never occur in your future. Well, I've never had a relationship or a good relationship in my life. Why now in my life will I ever have a good relationship and never have one in the future? It's just not going to happen for me. I can emotionally rationalize that in my mind. Well, welcome to a defense mechanism. So you'll always know when the human ego of your being is active through the negativism and through its defense mechanisms. But is it essential? Yes. Because it's your guidance system. See, your human ego is defending you, defending itself from either a real or imagined threat. Because that's what this thing does. It has to perceive threat in its experience, its environment, so it can keep itself safe. So the human ego, in that sense, perceives imagined or real threat around it. And as it does, it's constantly harboring, hanging, ruminating on the negativistic possibilities of this threat. That's how you identify it. That's how you identify it in your relationships. When you know you should move forward through a different kind of expression, but you qualify the reasons why you won't. Denying, doubting, minimizing, diminishing self and other, or emotionally rationalizing in a way. But when you hear the negativistic aspect of your human ego, it says, you can't, it won't, they never will. See, it can't have that thought unless the opposite of its thought is equally true. See, it's defending against an imagined threat. See, I'm not going to go to my boss and mention to my boss or whomever, to HR, that I'm being harassed by another employee, by my boss, by a supervisor, whatever it may be, because that threat is too big for me. I cannot face loss of my job. It's too fearful. And you hear all that. That is actually meant to guide you to what it is that you are seeking to do as a soul. And that's you. That's your spiritual ego. You can hear this human aspect of your being, and you can choose wisely. And you can go in the direction, so to speak, opposite of the fear. Because there is something about fear. On the other side of fear is your fulfillment. Dig it, right? I mean, really, I got to go through fear to get to fulfillment? Yeah. Yeah, you do. That's how we all do this. And sometimes fear is just a minor experience in our state of feeling. Other times it's emphasized and grand and suffocating, and it makes us immobile, that we cannot move in any direction because of it, and everything in between. So just want to check, Bob, to make certain that I have addressed your question a little bit. Let's see. Does it get in the way? Well, obviously, no, it doesn't get in the way. It's a necessary part of why you're here. It's your guidance system. And when you know how to speak its language, when you understand, like any language, I lived in the Middle East for a while, and I would drive around, people were speaking. I was illiterate and mute. I could not speak the language, nor could I understand the signs. That's very disturbing, actually, in that experience. And it's the same way. You know, in that way, when you learn about how the human ego communicates, it's like learning another language. But once you know the language of its consciousness, how it operates, once you understand the underlying psychology of your human ego, what it is doing, its purpose, and it does have a purpose. But it is not your opposer. It is your guidance system. It's how you listen to it that matters. It's how you distinguish you from it that matters. Again, you can allow it to drive the car, and you can rationalize in any which way the reasons why you would let it drive the car, why things are negative, why the world is the way it is, and why you would have the complaints or the feelings towards it. Of course, understood. But that's your choice. But that's not what it's meant for. It's not meant to thwart you. It's meant to guide you, if you know how to understand the language of the human ego. Let's see what else you may have. What else did I say? Is it a hindrance? Absolutely not. Is it necessary? Absolutely yes. And how much ego is necessary? That's a good one. How much ego? You know, as you ask that question, Bob, I will say it this way. No amount of ego is necessary. No amount of human ego is necessary. Understand it for what it is, a guidance system. Now, there are also positive aspects of the human ego as well. Aspects that actually do make you go to HR and let the people know you're being harassed by whomever. But the idea is that the human ego, that the amount of it, it's not about the amount, how much. It's about its relation to you. So in that way, we use the human ego as a guidance system for us. As souls, we understand this. We understand our conditions are chosen. Thus, as a soul, we have value for every condition we have. And as a soul, we get that the human ego in which we are experiencing ourselves through is actually our partner in life. Funny thing about your human ego, though, emotionally speaking, it's about 6 years old. That's it. All your conditions are that of a child. That's why your feelings get so intense. That's why we get so activated. And so, yes, my human ego is actually that inner child stuff you hear about. That's what it is. It's our inner, it's that part of us in the brain. The brain can only mature only so far, emotionally speaking, until it gets translated through through the cortical features of the brain that allow for the translation of feelings into thought. And the more we sophisticate the thought, the more advanced we are in our capacity to do such things, the more we're able to temper feelings or choose from those feelings what to do or not do. But as far as the amount of human ego, it's not about the amount. It's about the awareness. And then feeling it. It's a guidance system. It lets us know. It lets us know when we're on our path, and it lets us know when we're off. Now, I spoke of brain temperament back when I talked about the spirituality of the soul and the neural self. I just want to clarify that just for this program, for this show. Brain temperament. Everybody's brain is either high reactive or low reactive. We call them in the character types extrovert on the high reactive and introvert on the low reactive types. The fight or flight features of this brain in relation to survival and perceived or imagined threat. And in doing that, your brain got conditioned through many events, again, that you could not censor through the years of the incapable parts of the lifetime that you are living that you are unable to censor. That capacity was not within you as you developed young in your life, as we all develop young in our lives. And that's how we gain our conditions. And those conditions are necessary. They are essential. And everybody's brain is different as far as its temperament, like fingerprints. Everybody is unique along the spectrum of brain temperament. But know one thing about your human ego, and I'm going to emphasize this one more time. It is the essential part of this journey. It is your partner. And it wants to know that you're driving the car. And when you're not driving the car, you, the soul, it will act out through feelings and through thoughts, through negativism and through defense mechanisms. On your path, you don't feel those feelings as intense as they once were. As a matter of fact, they start to alter. They start to take a different form within your being. Next thing you know, something that threatened you is no longer a threat. It becomes family to you in that sense, into the inner psyche, into your relationship to it, into recognizing that it is there as a purposeful person, place, moment, event, you call it. But your human ego is that aspect of you that partners with you. And when it's acting out, when it's shouting out feelings and thoughts of hurt, of pain, of neglect and abandonment, and anything else that comes through negativistic experience of feeling, you as a soul, that lets you know that that this human ego of yours doesn't feel like you're driving the car. And so it's going to take over the wheel, and it's going to shout out to you. And all you got to do is place your hands over your being, over your chest, and identify this reality. Identify the moment in the experience you're having. Speak to that quality of your being, the human aspect that you are living through, and let it know that you have the wheel, that you are going to drive this car, regardless of conditions and the challenges they create. You know fulfillment's on the other side of fear. You know when it goes negative that it's guiding you to something that you can do, the positive. And again, we're not talking about going down a dark alley in a bad area. No, that's appropriate fear, appropriate survival. We don't place ourselves in such foolish moments. We're talking the existential stuff, folks, the big stuff. The stuff about the journey of meaning and purpose. And as you do, your human ego is your partner. So, you don't need any amount of human ego. It's not about that. But the amount of your spiritual ego, that's another story. So when I talked about you have two aspects of ego coming in to create a unified field, a unified form. You know, sometimes, like I mentioned last time, there are souls who have been aggressive throughout lifetimes and choose a brain body that is highly passive, highly introverted. And there's a dissonance between the aggression of that soul and its nature, its character, and the choice of a passive, introverted life body. What I tell people is this. you'll know the psychological malady associated to your brain type, and you'll know the brain type in relation to it by how your brain is processing psychological malady. What I mean is this. For the extroverted brain type, this is the brain type of movement, the brain type of external experience, external validation, external locus of understanding and identification. And in that way, people who deal with depression must move. You are movement people. You are not passive people. You have to get out of the bed or get out of the house or get out of the car or get off the bench or whatever you are and move the body. That's why they say movement is good for depression, because for those brain types, those temperaments, perfect. Move. But not only move in body, it means you're seeking to move in mind, move in understanding. It's okay if you don't have information and understanding in that moment. All you need to know is that you're being requested by the brain, by the organism, by the temperament of your human ego. All the psychological maladies are nothing more than the effects of underlying causes. But you don't have to go through every single one that is unique to you to know what it's letting you know and how you can best address it. So for the extroverted type, for the high reactive brains, movement. For the low reactive brains, the introverted types, these are the types that deal with anxiety. The anxiety of not knowing outcome. And their anxiousness is something that also requires them to the challenge. I'll say it this way. In the introverted type, it's not about moving from that for them. It's really about internal processing. It really is about understanding. It really is about gaining insight and information through an internal locus of understanding. So for the anxiety type, it's not about getting out and running around and doing movement. Although everything releases good endorphins in the body, movement is good for the brain. It releases good chemistry in the brain. But for the anxiety types, it's not based on movement, physical movement in life. It's based on seeking to understand. For those types, they need to understand before they move. For the high reactive brains versus the low reactive, they need to move before they understand. And that's how it works. So hopefully that clarified a little bit, Bob. Hopefully I brought a little more to the table about the human ego and what it is. And again, the distinction, one thing, Bob, and everybody else that's listening, you are not this human ego. You are the presence, the spiritual consciousness. You are the mind of this machine. You are here right now and you are filtered. And you can identify who is driving the car, and you can relate to your human ego as a partner when you understand the way it operates, its underlying nature, and its relation to how it is guiding you to the grandest experience of yourself that you're seeking to have. For the one thing that I do know, the one thing that we all know, see, if you are the one you are being, then only the one you are being can bring you to that promised land of fulfillment. Only the one you are being can fulfill whatever intention you have for this life, whatever lesson you're learning, whatever aspect of your selfhood you are growing, the purpose of your being. Only the one you are now in your human lifetime can bring you there. That's how special your human self is. That's how valuable. That's how unique. You'd be somebody else if this one could not do it for you. But only the one you are being can take you to that place, can bring you to that fulfillment. Otherwise, you would be somebody else. So, hopefully that was that helped clarify, that helped answer. And if there's anything more, any other questions around it, please, Bob or anybody, call me, text me, email me, Facebook me a message, and in the break I'll take a look and see what else needs to be clarified. Thank you, Bob. And by the way, Bob, because you sent in a question, I want to gift you a $25 gift certificate to you, whatever session you choose, be it a consult session, be it past life regression, or any other work you want to do with me, counseling. You got it, $25 off that session. Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much for the question. Okay, now, to the next question of the evening. All righty. This comes from Rob. Thank you, Rob, very much for sending your questions. I do appreciate it. And Rob actually has a series of questions. Good questions, Rob, and I'm gonna be going one at a time. His first question: what steps can people take to really solidify, prove these beliefs are real to themselves? What truly gave you that aha moment? Okay, that's the first question. In the very first show, Rob, I talked about knowing. And there's two means of knowing that are required to create a fullness of knowing. One, information, the cognitive stuff, the intellect stuff. That's one part of the knowing. The second part, experience, the experiential knowing. And when you bring them both together, you have a fullness of knowing. Now, how can you know if these past lives, if any of this is real, if with the beliefs that you believe in, that I am a soul being human, how can I know any of this? Face it, you can't. It's all probability. All you can do is look at the factors, the evidence, to help distinguish what is likelihood. And as I look through all the lenses of quantum science and psychology and paranormal phenomena and near-death experiences and evolution of belief systems and the idea of a soul in the first place, all this other stuff that I had researched over the years, as I tried to understand this, even the human organism and its functions and operations. Listen, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm no expert in that. But what I do understand is the psychological nature of knowing. And there are three ways that we get to knowing. One is I think, I believe, and I know. I think it is so, so I hope it is so. It's like a wish. There's no proof, there's no evidence, there's really no stories. I think it is, I hope it is. But then somehow I read information, I meet a group of people, somebody demonstrates there seems to be some evidence out there. Boy, I move into believe. I believe it is so. I've read the books, Jonathan. I believe it is so. I've done a regression, and I believe it is so, but I don't know it is so. So if I believe, I trust. I have faith. But I don't know. And we're all, every seeker out there, all of us, we're looking to know. And I don't care what you're seeking. Spiritually seeking, humanistically seeking, financially, whatever it is, whatever type of seeker you are, we're all looking to know in the end. Thus, you wouldn't be seeking, because seeking denotes that you are on a journey of looking for an answer. So how can you know? Well, when did I have my aha experience? Well, I will say this. I have clients that come to me for sessions, and we do a past life regression, and boom, I call my one session wonders. They know. It is just real for them. It is like an apple, like I described, that they bit into and they've chewed it and they go, oh my gosh, I can taste this apple. I know this apple. And they become more realized in the moment of themselves in relation to the belief that brought them in the first place, which is around the idea of a soul being human and reincarnation. And then I have my clients who come in for one session and they are seeking to know, and they don't get that knowing. I didn't get it in my first session. My very first past life regression, which I described in other programs, I left it going, wow, that was a heck of a story that came through my mind. But did I know anything? Absolutely not. But I was convinced after my mentor called me a few days later and said, hey, Jonathan, what do you know of this Native American tribe? And I'm like, nothing. Now, so that's something I knew I didn't know. And the irony of this work is you know what you do know and you know you don't know. And I did not know this information about this Native American tribe, the specials in this, as far as the tribal structures and the migrations and culture and everything else to it. I didn't have that information. But afterwards, after he told me about it and I seemed to be accurate, I was like, okay, all right, I'm beginning to believe, so to speak. And I went through, again, a number of these past life regressions and even life between life regressions. And I would have like an infusion of attunement. I felt myself in my spiritual divine being in my human life. For some past life regressions would last a day or two. Then I'd come back to earth. And my LBLs, it seemed to last for a few weeks. LBL short for Life Between Lives Regressions. And I come out of those memory recall moments, and I would be buzzing, high in the cloud, feet nowhere in the ground. And so I didn't obtain a knowing until something happened to me. Something happened that I'm going to share with you right now. And in a future program, we're going to talk about what this means when I say it this way. Because there is a reason why I say that you are the mind of this machine, that you, the soul, you are this consciousness of this life form. You are filtered through this human organ that we call the brain, and the human organism with the brain body and everything else. But you are this mind. You are here. You are the one, the I am. That is you. That is you, your soul. And I had an experience that I'm going to share with you in this moment that I'm almost reluctant to share because it's really kind of an exposure, but I'm going to share it anyways because it's the moment to share, I guess. About a year after my first Life Between Lives regression, now I had done about a dozen or thereabouts past life regressions over the years leading up to it. And I started in 1994, and I didn't do my Life Between Lives regression until 2005. So it's been about 10 years, and it had been about 5 years before I did any other regression work when I did the training with Dr. Newton at Dr. Newton's organization for Life Between Lives regression. And when I came out of that experience, again, as I've said before, I was buzzing like crazy. Head in the clouds, feet nowhere in the ground. But something happened to me. It didn't happen to me that moment, because I came back to earth, Rob. I came back and, I was just being Jonathan again. And I was in the moment of belief, and I questioned, and that stuff came from my mind. That was pretty proud and pretty fantastic. Really? Really, Johnny? Really? But I kept listening to it. And I listened to the guidance that came through it. And something happened to me a year later. It was 2006, April of 2006. It was a year after my Life Between Lives regression and my training with the Newton Institute. And it was a beautiful spring morning like every other spring morning. It was one of those spring mornings where the sun's coming through the window and you can feel the warm air coming through the window. And you know it's a warm day outside. And I went to go take a shower like every morning before that. And I looked in the mirror like every morning before that. And for those who have heard this story, you know where I'm going. For those who have not. And when I looked in the mirror, I had a completely different experience coming through me. See, usually when I look in the mirror, I'd have the usual commentary of my morning look. Like, hey, Johnny, and I'd look at my eyes, hey, a few more wrinkles, or I'd rub my hand over my head and go, hey, you're losing a little more hair, and I'd have some sort of commentary in relation to my morning look, like a majority of us have. Yet that morning, when I looked in the mirror, there was a difference coming through me. I'll say it this way. I woke up in my life as Jonathan. I became aware of something. I was being him. And I looked down at my feet to make sure that my feet were on the ground. I said, all right, feet are on the ground. I'm okay. So far, so good. And then I asked myself a question. And this is very non-PC, but I'll say it because this is the question I asked myself. Am I crazy? Really? Is this actually happening? I knew looking in that mirror, in that moment, I'm a soul, awakened in my human life. Now, that's a far-out experience. Anybody would be a little shaken by that moment. And I wondered, is this what's going on here? Is this for everybody, or am I delusional? The cool thing is, if you ask the question, you're delusional. If you ask the question, if you are crazy, as much non-PC as that statement is, you can't be, because the people who are do not ask that question. In the field of psychology, we know that. Okay, I'm not. Then what's going on here? And I went through all this journey of looking into it. And that's going to be a talk for a future program. My aha moment was decades into it for me. It wasn't like a moment like I had a past life regression and boop, I'm here. Or a Life Between Lives moment where, whoop, okay, my belief is knowing. I take it like I take my Life Between Lives regression, all the work I did. It's like an hourglass. And when I started doing this work for myself personally, it's like something got stuck. A little pebble, a little sand got stuck and was blocking the sifting down of my essence of being as a soul in my experience of Jonathan, my consciousness, so to speak. And after all these regressions, I was shaking this hourglass. And after my life between lives regression, I dislodged whatever particle was creating this obstacle, this barrier. And over a year's time, something happened. I wasn't looking for this to happen. And when I became a seeker, it wasn't like, oh, yeah, this is what I want in the end. No, I had no idea where this is going. I had no idea what the outcome was going to be. But you asked me, when was my aha moment? It was then, April 2006, when I woke up in the experience of being me. And I went, aha. And so again, this is why I do the work I do. This is why I say the things I say. Because to me, you're a soul being human. And I always want to know who's driving the car. And I got my answer. And ever since then, I've been trying to process that, understand it, and its operations and what we are doing here. That's why I do the work I do. That's why I talk about the spirituality of the soul. It's a journey that a paradigm, a life philosophy that I've embraced because this is where I see the evidence is pointing. Can I know for certain? Hey, my knowing's going to grow. And so I leave that opening that my knowing may not be all of knowing. Again, everything I know is an educated guess. It's a pretty informed guess, pretty well educated, but not just with information, with experience. So if you're one who is seeking the experiential, well then, one past life regression may not be enough. Two may not be enough. A few may be right for you. A life between lives regression and then processing and integrating and bringing everything into your life, so the fullness of knowing, not just from information, not just from the experience of a regression, but now the integration of all that knowledge into the life you're living brings you the feeling of knowing. You can't know intellectually. You have to feel it. And that's what I'm talking about, because the next level beyond I believe is I know. Each one encapsulates a feeling. And when you know, there's a certainty that it's inescapable. Because the only thing following knowing is knowing. It's a certainty. But, again, allowing for the opportunity for more knowledge to come in. And let me tell you, man, some of the knowledge that's come through certainly has challenged me. And we'll talk about that in shows like about angels or spirit attachment and things as such. Okay. What advice, number 2, what advice do you have for people struggling to find what fulfills them? All right, good question, Rob. There is a way of doing this. And I'm going to say it this way. Now, just so you know, I'm a big fan of keep it simple, smarty. See, I think I'm so smart that I make things very, very complex, and I realize that's not the way it works. The most elegant understanding is the simplest of understanding. How can I know what fulfills me? Bottom line, man, you got to be honest with yourself. See, you already know. We all already know what's going to fulfill us. But we have a resistance to moving in those directions. So we don't. And we live through the resistance. That resistance is, again, guidance. We know what's going to fulfill us. If it means the job you're in is not feeling fulfilled, but you feel fearful of financial issues or repercussions from choosing to leave this job, well, you're not going to do it without intelligence. You're not going to do it with as a reactive experience, for a reactive choice. No. But you have to be honest. If you're not feeling fulfilled where you're at, then you know where you want to go. You know there's a different experience. You know there's a different place where you want to express yourself. Physically, mentally, emotionally, relationally. And in doing that, when you are honest, downright brutal reality, boom, honest, well, then you can now be real about what's going to fulfill you. I know that sounds kind of almost simple, almost too simple, but it's true. I mean, I had to be honest with myself when I started this show. I was scared out of my pants to do it. Everything in my mind and my being said, you got to be kidding me, you're going to throw yourself out there like this, buddy boy. Resist, resist, resist. But if I was honest with myself, which I was, I knew only by doing this show, only by putting myself in this moment, only by challenging myself in this way, could I grow. See, I don't know the path I stepped on. You don't need to know. But you must be honest with yourself in every aspect of your life. And sometimes we can't get there. Too many defenses. Well, then note your defenses. Hear the negativism. Hear the doubts, the denials, the diminishments, the minimizations, the emotional rationalizations. They're all there as guidance system towards what is going to fulfill you. But honesty, phew. And we're talking real, brutal, absolute. It's the only way we can do it, but we are so conditioned to temper it, to qualify our experience, why we won't do something because of harm to another or harm to whatever it may be, this perceived imagined threats. When I realize that if I'm in an experience that is not benefiting me, then it cannot be benefiting the other. If I have lost and I know I have to move along in a job, in a relationship or anything, and I'm fearful of hurting or wounding or affect in a way that would be a negativistic feedback to my experience, then I'm denying the other their opportunity to grow. Because the rule, like I've mentioned all along about being in this experience, you must be authentic to who you are. You must act in genuine accordance with what you know so that your knowing can grow. And sometimes making those choices will bring a pain that we call a pain to others. And we don't want to hurt others. Good souls, we don't want to hurt each other. But we can't, man. We can't hurt each other. We hinder each other by not being authentic, by not being brutally honest. Never should you be anywhere in which resistance is the emotional relation to being there, to remaining there, the resistance to move from where you are. No. If you want to fulfill the life you're in, be brutally honest with yourself. And know truly, fully, wholly, and completely that you can't injure others. See, you must play your role. You must make your choice. And even if it seems like you may be hurting another through this choice, you cannot. Because what you do is you give them the opportunity to grow. Like I said in the other shows, unfortunately, for what it's worth, we grow through dissonance, man, into resonance. We have to feel disharmony to move to harmony. You know, I'm not going to grow living on the beach in the Caribbean unless my tan is what I want to grow, or my belly from the rum drinks, and a lot of the shellfish I'll be eating as I'm living there. No, we grow our being through the challenges of our conditions and through the parts of our experience of ourselves that require us to make choice. And that choice can never hurt another, unless the choice is made under the intention to hurt another. That is not a spiritual choice. Welcome to your human ego. We are never here to hurt another. No, but you cannot hurt yourself. You are essential to everything that's going to happen in your life. You are the central nucleus to the atomic self that you are. We talked about this in the earlier programs. And you being the central nucleus is all about how you ripple your expression of yourself into the field of life, into the people who are in your first orbit. For me, it's my wife and my child. And we affect the others. And if I have a dissonance within me, even in my work environment, or in my relationships, or any aspect of my life, one that I'm ignoring, that I'm denying, that I'm qualifying as a burden that I'll have to suffer, that I'll have to encounter, that I'll have to be a martyr through the lifetime, well, then you are denying the realization of what is meant for you in that experience. And what is meant for the other. Brutal honesty if you want to fulfill the life. And recognition, we can do no harm. We can hinder. And again, harm meaning the intention of harm. Through your choice making, if you're never attending to harm, even if the choice is made with an ignorance of understanding, you soften, so to speak, the energies of the harm that you are generating. In other words, it won't be so intense. Okay. At this point, it's about 8:15. And Rob asked a few more questions. You know what? We're going to actually move into those questions in the next segment. And these are good questions. He wants to know about the journey of souls and how we can be in the spiritual dimension and in the soul and the human body at the same time. But not only that, how can we be in two human lifetimes at once, parallel lives? Good question. And last, how can I remind my soul not to be tricked into coming back to Earth next time around? And he writes, half kidding, very funny. That's a good one, too. So we'll be looking at those two questions and answering those questions. If you have to move along in this moment, please, you can always come and check the recording at jonathanyorks.com, MALMFTCHT on my business Facebook page. You always can find the recordings there. I'm going to be downloading them onto a YouTube channel soon called the Past Life Regression Radio Show, and also on a podcast, one of those podcast sites. I will be sending out information to let you know. If you have questions or you want to talk to me more outside of this, please feel free to call me at 617-875-6686 and set up a time to talk, or you can contact me through jonathanyorks.com or mysoulmyself.com and set up a free initial telephone consult. There's totally complimentary. There is no charge for such a thing. I'm more than happy to talk with you. So, this is the Past Life Regression Radio Show. I am Jonathan Yorks. We are going to be back in 5 minutes. See you soon.
Aren't you tired of your plain white walls? Do you ever wonder why you feel uninspired at the office or feel like your home lacks character? It's always the same boring walls over and over again. Well, it's time for a change. Visit waldecor3d.com and order wall panels that will turn your walls into beautiful and extravagant looking accent walls. The 3D wall panels give an extra dimension and complement just about any room. Their current selection includes plant fiber wall paneling, MDF wood wall panels, mosaic real wood paneling, and thin slate stone veneer. Remember, that's waldecor3d.com. Order now and add some depth to your life.
If you're just hearing about Monk Therapeutic Air for the first time, it's a recyclable diffuser that promotes mood change and life-enhancing effects through our custom blends of essential oils in the ancient practice of aromatherapy. Monk is the simplest aromatherapy device in history. You don't have to know anything about essential oils. We do all that for you. Simply pick the way you want to feel, open your Monk, and breathe in as your Monk diffuses an eclectic blend of essential oils and wild plant extracts. Monk is available in 7 different blends, all of which are organic, natural, and free of nicotine, tobacco, or artificial chemicals. Visit monq.com to learn more.
Have you always wanted to make your own podcast? Or had dreams of becoming the next social media influencer? Don't let office space and equipment be what gets between you and your dreams. New studio space is now available through the Go Network. The Go Network is a multimedia broadcast company that currently hosts live radio shows and podcasts. With microphones to fit all guests, the ability to video record interviews, a stage for band performances, and an editing suite to put your audio and video content to the next level. The Go Network will provide assistance with producing, editing, sponsorship outreach, marketing, and more. You can create the podcast or web series you want with the lower price tag. Visit our studio location in Norwood or our audio suite in Canton. For more information, call us at 857-445-0424 or email us at info@gonet.com. That's info@GEAUXNET.com. In a world filled with many distractions, would it be incredible to find a way to get lost in your own choosing? Do you love to hear crisp audio from your favorite podcasts? Have you ever felt like the soundtrack to a movie or a video game would sound greater if there was a better way to deliver sound? Bear Dynamic closed-back studio headphones are a perfect tool for any sound enthusiast. Plug in your Bear Dynamic headphones and go on an audio escape. The Bear Dynamic DT770 Pro headphones are a favorite amongst music producers, sound engineers, and broadcasters all over the world. If you're not prepared to compromise on studio sound, visit www.beardynamic.com. That's www.beardynamic.com and get your own pair now. Whether for home or on the go, it is the right product for every need.
Are you in need of stickers, be it for personal or business use? Then you need to go to stickeru.com right now. That's stickeryou.com. Sticker U is passionate about providing you and your business with the highest quality custom stickers, labels, decals, and iron-ons. They can even make you temporary tattoos. If you want to stick out from the competition, then you need Sticker U, as Sticker U provides the best platform in the world to create custom products that make you stick.
So who are the real original housewives? Well, Sarah, Esther, Mary, and Ruth. Proclaim this and other Bible references on a shirt at onebodyonespirit.com. One Body, One Spirit is a Christian-themed clothing store for ladies and men that allows believers to express their faith, glorify God, and start conversations through something as simple as a t-shirt. Plus, a portion of every purchase is donated to charities. Their website is spirit.com to view their clothing selections. onebodyonespirit.com.
Has your computer seen better days? Is it always freezing and lagging? Are you constantly plagued with pop-ups and viruses? Are you not able to get any work done? You don't need a new computer. You need Phoenix Technology Support. With just one call to Phoenix Technology Support, you will never have to stress over the hassles of taking your computer to a repair shop again. Just leave your computer right where it is and let us come directly to you. Phoenix Technology Support has over 10 years of experience in the industry of customer support and IT solutions, and it's the best place for help with all of your home or business electronics. From gaming systems to tablet setups, smartphones to smart TVs, even business servers and emails. We will help set up or troubleshoot almost any technology in your home or office. So next time you think your technology is at the end of its life, have it rise from the ashes like a phoenix by calling Phoenix Technology Support at 617-658-3240. That's 617-658-3240, or go to www.phoenixtechboston.com.
I'm Jonathan Yorks, and you're listening to the Past Life Regression Radio Show. Welcome back to the Past Life Regression Radio Show and Spirituality for Souls. I'm Jonathan Yorks. We are coming to the last segment of our show here at the Go Network, where we're here every Wednesday from 7 to 9 p.m. And today it's a no agenda show, no agenda Wednesday, taking questions, answering them hopefully as well and with understanding, so that the questions that were asked are actually gaining the knowledge that is being requested from asking such questions. Okay, I am now going to go into the next part of Rob's questions. And again, just wonderful questions and incredibly appreciated that you would send out these questions. By the way, Rob, just like Bob before you, $25 off your next session. For whatever session it is, I'll be sending out to both you and Bob through email a gift certificate that you can use for any session whatsoever. And by the way, anybody who calls in, anybody who asks a question, they receive a $25 gift certificate. So I have the emails of these people, but if I do not have your email and you would like to leave your email or send me your email after your question or things as such, if you're Facebooking me or if you're texting me, just also include your email and I'll be able to send you off a $25 gift certificate to your next session or your first session. Okay, now let's go into the next part of Rob's questions. The next question, he says this: Journey of Souls lost me a bit when he started talking about our souls being able to inhabit two bodies at the same time, and our higher selves are still being active in the soul world. How can my conscious self see through the eyes of two different people at the same time? And how can my soul be in a body but also be active? Great questions. That's fantastic, Rob. Great question. Well, I guess the way to answer it is by an example. I had the same question. I was trying to find a way of communicating to people. How can I be me, the essence of me, in the spiritual dimension, yet also focused in my human lifetime? When I am here and I am so here and I'm so identified with being here that I don't even know I exist over there. How does that happen? What is that like? Well, the analogy is this. You're in bed, you're sleeping, and you're dreaming. Your body is in the bed. Your mind is in the dream. And you don't know your body is in the bed. You think you are the one in the dream. And you go through all the experience of being there, even though you're not in that place. But the sensorium experience in the inner mind projects you into this place we call a dream. But your body is in the bed. So that's how you can be in two places at once. But it doesn't answer the question of how I can be a conscious self in the spiritual dimension and a conscious self in the human experience. How can I be in both places at once, consciously? Think of your consciousness holographically. If you know what a hologram is, every aspect, every particle, every image within of that hologram, if you take a segment out, it contains the whole image within it. You can't remove any segment of a hologram and not have the whole image within that little segment. So you could say a hologram is made up of all these little images into a giant form, so to speak, but that is not really exactly how it works. But yet the irony is when you pull out an aspect of it, when you take a piece of that hologram out, it contains the whole image itself. So think of your consciousness in the same way. Think of it holographically, that you have the capacity to project your consciousness, take a piece, an aspect, a percentage of your consciousness, and put it someplace else and have it focused there. Now, in the spiritual understanding of this, that we only come in with a certain percentage of our spiritual consciousness. But we are no less active in the spiritual dimension, as a hologram has no less the whole in its little part that I pulled out. But we are just not images, we are consciousness beings. So I can project and take out a certain amount of my consciousness and project it into a life form, even though I am still existent within the spiritual dimension. My consciousness still remains intact. I am just projected a certain part of me, a percentage of me, somewhere else that can equally go on and contain the fullness of my experience of self. And even though I am in the spiritual dimension aware and somehow attuned to it, I'm still moving through other environments, other experiences in the spiritual dimension where I don't focus on that aspect of me that is going through a lifetime. Now, parallel lives, that's an incredible thing. The idea that we can come into two lifetimes, actually inhabit two human lives in the same moment in time, and still be in the spiritual dimension. Same applies. It is holographic, Rob. It is, in that way, your consciousness is not a linear. It's not linear. It is not. It's not a piecemeal consciousness. Your consciousness contains the totality of you, and no matter what you do, no matter how much you project into another life form, every aspect of you remains intact within every life form you are in the spiritual dimension or in the human dimension. You are always there. Again, think of it holographically, that you've extended yourself and project yourself. And if you think of it, that's what life is doing. We're representations of life. It has projected itself into all this individuated aspects that we call souls, this nature of its being, expression, through not just in the idea of energy, but the idea of consciousness depicted in the character of every soul that is existent. And as new souls are generated, their character is unlike any other character that has ever been created. We are that unique. But we are still being extensions, expressions of life and all that life is. But we are only a certain part of it. We are only certain, we're not the totality of life in that sense. There are many expressions. Again, we'll talk about angelic expression in one show because I'm amazed by that. I'm not a big angel guy, but I'll tell you, I've been exposed to too much to look at the evidence and say, okay, all right, I got to let my knowing grow here because there's something taking place that I am just not able to wrap my head around. But the more I look at it and get exposed to it, I see how it works. I see how it operates through the souls that have come through my door, angelic types and spiritual types that work with the angelic. The relationship we have with such beings of consciousness, such beings of life. So, Rob, in that way, you are in the spiritual dimension. You're a holographic extension of you in the spiritual dimension in every life you are in. You are focused here, but you are still the totality of your spiritual self. You operate dimensionally in that way. You are not limited by space-time experience. You have the capacity as a being of consciousness to project your consciousness into life forms and remain intact. And that's what you are in this human life. You have projected a certain amount of your spiritual consciousness into this human life. Now, in the Life Between Lives regression, we can ask such a question. And actually, seemingly, I think it was 35% I brought into this life. And seemingly it's working out so far. So in that way, hopefully that answers the question. Again, may not be fully understood, but in the way when we conceptualize it, think of it like, how can I be in two places at once? Well, when I'm dreaming, my body's in the bed, but my mind's somewhere else. So I get that part of it. Now I have to just understand consciousness through a different lens. That consciousness is a whole, holism, hologram. And in that way, no matter what aspect of your consciousness is projected, the fullness of your being is always within it. Okay. And how can I remind my soul not to be tricked into coming back to Earth the next time around? Half kidding. You're not tricked. It's choice. But once you've begun the choice to incarnate into human lifetimes, in the spiritual dimension, you recognize something. It's the only way you can grow. Yes, you can process in the spiritual dimension, and yes, you can grow in a certain way through the spiritual dimension, but it's a dimension that is atmospherically infused with love, with the energies of acceptance and just, again, you're not, it's not an environment like the human world where you feel energies of dissonance, where you feel lower vibrational experiences of mind and feelings. It doesn't happen in the spiritual dimension, and it is a foreign experience. We don't know how, because it's infused. Your atmosphere, we breathe it in. It generates our existence in that way. So in that way, we can't grow without the challenge of growth. So we come into these human lives. And you have a choice, though. You don't have to come back. But you've started a journey already. You know when you took on this journey, you were going to go all the way, no matter what happened along the way. You could say it's on the menu. And it says, once you begin, the only way this stops is to bring it to completion. So, you can't trick your soul into not coming back. You can't trick you into not coming back. Oh, I hear Rob's mind in that moment, certainly, and maybe there's spiritual qualities of your essence in that thought as well, karmically conditioned within it, having to take the challenges or whatever it is that creates such a thought in your mind. But even that thought is a guidance system. Even that thought helps point you along the way. That thought keeps you from being here. That thought keeps you from being fully present, fully possible in what you can create in the life you are in. Any dissonant thought that you seek to, or that you attend to, that you emphasize, that you give attention to, and then you allow it to move you through the experience of expression, well, that thought keeps you from fullness, keeps you from the intention of outcome. Hey, learn a lesson in this life, learn it in the afterlife. Your choice, you want it as a positive attribute? Then I can recognize that any thought of dissonance, any thought that detracts you from the presence of your fullness here, is a thought that's a guiding thought. So no, you can't trick yourself into coming back. You've already made the agreement, you've already made the choice. And that way you are here till it's finished, until you are done, as we all are. And we hear about the wheels of karma and the cycles of karma. And we're going to have a big show about karma one day. And it'll be a fun show to talk about karma. Because karma is a big word, and we've heard it quite a bit. And we'll have a fun time talking about it. But as far as your journey of being here, no, there's no tricks, Rob. You're here, guy, as we all are. Because we already made the choice to be here. And also, I want to say this. What we are, the entities that we are designed for this experience, you could say. We have the temperament, we have the energetic integrity as far as our as far as how we are made up as souls, why we even call the term souls in the first place. But in that way of distinguishing ourselves, we have entitled ourselves souls, but these are the entities within the spiritual experience of life that are meant to incarnate. We have the capacity to incarnate. Not all beings of life can incarnate into human life forms. It ain't an easy journey, folks. You all know that. No. It's special. You're special. We're all special. Incarnating into human lifetime, it takes a certain type of soul to do that. Souls of strength. Souls with energetic integrity. When I say that, meaning a good energetic state, stable, strong, to go through the human experience. So thank you, Rob. That's really cool. I do appreciate it. I am going to now go to one more question. One more question for the evening. And this is a question from Maria. How do you put your fears aside to become the successful person you know you can be? Good question. How do I put my fears aside? How do you put your fears aside? Your fears aside. Well, I would say this, Maria. You don't. You don't put them aside. You alter your relationship to them. And when you do, and you recontextualize what it is, where it's guiding you, what it means for you, and what's meant on the other side, and what your fear is keeping you from. Your fear is a guidance system. It means it helps you get to your fulfillment. Success is in the realization of this. See, success is an effect, not the cause of anything. And because it is the effect of something, what causes success? We all have fear. We all operate through that fear. Some it's more intense than others. When I did this show, as I've described and talked about a number of times, I was freaking out. Honestly, when that camera, when that first, when I was counted into the first show and I said, welcome to the Baz Life Regression Radio Series. No one through my mind. I was screaming, get out of here, shut it off. This fear was just going all through my head. But I know it's relation to me. I know what it's doing for me. I drive this car, not my fear. And the only way we resolve feeling is to demonstrate, to prove, to advance forward, knowing fear is this to me. It's an anagram. Is that the right word? I think it is. False energy activated reactively. That is what your fear is. False energy activated reactively. When you understand what fear is for you, then you can start to alter your relation to it. You can recalibrate, reposition your mind. And as you do, you can start seeing it for what it is. It's a guidance system. It's trying to help you get to the other side of something you're seeking to get to. And you chose this fear of yours. It is a condition you have. It is not who you are. It's a piece of clothing you wear, in which you feel through you, in the radiance of your psyche as a soul. But it's embedded within the human life form you are in, the one you are being. And everybody's fear is unique to them. Of course I had mine, and it kept me for a long time from doing more of me in the earlier parts of my life. Absolutely. It's okay. I don't mind being a late bloomer. It means I have a lot more life to live. There's never time not. You can never run out of time. Impossible. In this lifetime, while you're still here, then you can address the fear. Fear is a feeling. I don't get rid of my feelings. My feelings tell me what's going on. My feelings happen, boom, instantly. And as much as I want to will my feeling away, will my fear away, will my sadness or anything else I may be feeling in that moment, no. In my second program when I came here, I said, I woke up in a mood that day in the second show. I talked about it really in the third show about how I was in a mood. I just couldn't get out of my own mood, and I felt flat on that second show. Man, I couldn't get out of the feeling. It doesn't matter what I tried to do. I couldn't will myself out of a feeling. We cannot will ourselves out of a feeling. I can't think myself out of a feeling. I can't redirect thoughts. And if I've redirected my thoughts enough through the journey of working on my thoughts and working what they mean in relation to the feeling I'm having, be it fear or whatever else, I find that I can move through it and actually alter that feeling within it through that realization. But that takes work. That does take time. And that's fine. It doesn't have to take forever. It just has to be realized, though, that as you do it, you are altering the fear. You're altering the energies. The irony of this, the fear doesn't stop until you've gone through what you had to go through to get the other side of the fear. And then you find the fear isn't there. Change doesn't happen until after we notice it's happened. The fear, how can I use that to be successful? I have to alter my relationship to it, because that's what it's about. It is a condition you have, false energy, activated reactively. And by recognizing that, and by recontextualizing your identity as a soul in a human life, by knowing how your human ego communicates to you, the negativism of it, because that's fear is all about the negativistic. You must have, of course, as we all do, a high degree of negative thought packaged within that fear, whatever your fear is centered around. I don't know what your fear is around, but if you say success, there's something you're seeking to be successful in. And I'll tell you right now, if you have a fear of that success, then you must have it within the lifetime to be successful in whatever endeavor that fear is keeping you from. Again, it's a defense mechanism. It's the brain, the ego, trying to keep itself safe. It needs to survive. Imagine a real threat. Fear is what means that I don't want to have pain. And the pain is what? Emotionally processed, I'm sure. Stimulated, activated for the moment of the event or experience or circumstance that you have to encounter in order to resolve this fear within you. Now, if you're talking fear of spiders, fear of flying, certain other kind of more specific fears, many times these can be helped and addressed in a past life regression. Not all the time. I know people who have fears, who did not, who were not helped, and have gone through life between lives regression and were not helped. And the fear was so emphasized within them that they wondered, they questioned everything about their journey, everything about their being. And what they couldn't or wouldn't do or chose not to do, they didn't choose to grow, to take that fear and say, screw it. Either I die with this fear or I'm making this choice and moving forward. It doesn't matter anymore because I can't live in the experience of this fear and it denying me the life I want to live. As you know, and as we all know, you have to face your fears. It's one of those things. It's an absolute. But it's how you face the fear, how you contextualize it, how you position it in your mind. But it's also mainly how you position yourself, your being, your view of life. And when you contextualize it that you are a soul, living a human lifetime, that you are going to incarnate again, that this fear is your guidance system. This fear is here to help you. This fear is a condition embedded within you, and the fear is generally, if it's an ego context, it's the fear is based on this young aspect of your experience. The brain emotionally is a child that is processed through very sophisticated parts of the cortical regions that allow thought to offset feelings. But it won't take away the feeling. The feeling is there to guide you. And as it is, know, if I have this fear, I must have the capacity already within me to fulfill whatever's on the other side, the success of whatever outcome this fear is keeping me from. Otherwise, you'd have a different fear. It's all purposeful. It's just how you position yourself. False energy activated reactively. Never meant to keep you from where it is you want to go. Meant to guide you. But who's going to drive the car, Maria or Marie? you, the enlightened one that is in there, who perhaps listens to this and says, okay, so I'm not going to get rid of this feeling of fear. If it's an existential fear based on a choice you have to make and an action you have to commit to in order to offset the energies and resolve them, yeah, that fear ain't going away until you do that challenge. So you make that choice. I'll tell you right now, personally speaking, because I've gone through myself most recently, peace is on the other side of that moment. You just feel fuller in your experience. You just feel more alive, more real, more present, more fulfilled. And the journey doesn't end, of course. There's more journey to go, even when we overcome those particular fears. So, Marie, and anybody and everybody, don't buy into the illusion of fear. Understand it as a condition. Understand it as a partner. Shift your position. Shift the way you see it. Recontextualize it in your mind. Recalibrate your mind. Every time that fear comes up, redirect those feelings. Bring out enlightened awareness. See it and smile. I know it's hard, man. I get it. I do, because I live it myself, just like y'all. I have mine. You have yours, but yours are unique to you, chosen by you, so that you could grow in a way that you could not grow otherwise. Otherwise, you'd have a different fear. So, hopefully that was helpful, Marie. Again, if it's much more that you need, that you want more consult, or you find that, no, I need some therapy around this as well, Jonathan, you let me know, Marie. $25 off your first session. You can always email me at Jonathan at mysoulmyself.com. And send me an email, Marie, just letting me know if you want to meet or just talk on the phone. More than happy to do it. And if it means coming in for a session, $25 off the first session. So Marie, Rob, and Bob, thank you all very, very much. That was awesome. I hope that everybody else enjoyed listening to the answering of these questions. And now we're going to come to the closing of the program. And because it's Halloween, I'm going to close the program out with this. We're going to talk about ghosts. Now, if you've read Dr. Newton's books, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls, well, then you can kind of then you can see what he wrote about the idea of discarnate souls. Souls that have been in human lives, that when they left that human life, they remain within the astral plane, so to speak. Now, when I say astral, see life as different vibrations, different frequency. And even though we experience three-dimensional life, we actually live in four dimensions, because one of the dimensions is time. And we see time as very linear in the experience we have, in the dimension we are in. But time is not that. It's a frequency field, this fourth dimension. And in having within this frequency field of the fourth dimension, as far as, the idea of what ghosts are, this is what we understand. That as a soul, like I talked about, that we are holographic expressions into a life that we are in, that we are not absent from anywhere, that we are whole no matter how much we project, because our projected self contains the totality of our consciousness. And when we leave a lifetime, if we are pained, if we are tormented, if there's something that is unresolved so deeply within our psyche, within that lifetime, we actually don't remain here fully. What we do is we leave the particles of that experience behind. And then we also transition to the spiritual dimension. I've done close to 500 of these Life Between Lives regression. Sometimes I have souls that linger, but everybody transitions. But I have had souls that have told me that as they transitioned, they left particles of themselves behind. Particles that needed to find resolution. Particles that needed to somehow gain insight, experience, understanding, for the fullness of understanding and knowledge from that life to finally be gained by the soul that has been that has been in that life. So sometimes we have these kind of psychic imprints where we seem to see, as I talk about it in the paranormal, where the events seem to take place in a loop, like we tapped into some sort of recording in that moment. And these are unconscious environments, unconscious entities that don't interact with those in the material world versus the spiritual world. But then there are entities that seem to have a bit of a consciousness to them. They can interact. And they don't interact as benevolent entities, of course. They're interacting through their struggle, through the ego particle self that is left behind. That for whatever reason is left behind through trauma or extreme drama, so to speak. Well, whatever it is unresolved, that needs to sit here and needs to be here to continue to gain some identification within the realization of its nature in order for it to progress. So what are ghosts, as far as the spiritual experience, what we know is this. These are particles of ourself that we leave behind. Now, we don't just let them leave. We don't leave them behind with no way of getting home. Yes, we have ones who are here. I think we call them the Watchers. I'll have to go back and take a look at the title of these entities that are here. And what they'll do with the entities who are discarnate yet still on Earth is they'll tweak little moments. They'll interfere with their psyches. They'll add different elements, different ingredients that take it from its kind of stream of consciousness that it is trapped in and acts as an interference pattern within that psychic vibration that is left behind. Now, that interference pattern doesn't always awaken that entity into a realized state. But at some point it does happen. At some point, that entity is released and does go in fullness to the spiritual dimension. Sometimes it happens with our help, where we are able to tune in and communicate and inform. Other times, no. So there's much that goes on in the spectrum of ghosts. But the idea of ghosts, from what we understand, is that ghosts are the particles, aspects of the ego nature of the human self you were, that were imprinted within you, that are unresolved, that have denied whatever experience of your spiritual journey, and you left behind. You left behind to gain further understanding. Something's required in order that you would leave an aspect of your being behind. But you are always in fullness. Even the particle nature you left behind contains the fullness of your psyche as a soul. Absolutely. But it is so entrenched in the human ego, so identified, that it becomes the totality of its consciousness until it is somehow interrupted. An interference pattern, because we look through life through the eyes of energy and consciousness. And in that interference pattern, that entity, the particulate self of that being, that soul that it was left behind in a human life, is able to move along. Now, this is different from souls that when they transition and they perpetrated, or I'll say express themselves through a dissonant energies, through bringing harm to others, to bringing disregard, to bringing diminishment, and to bringing dissonance into in the field of creation. Those souls do have to process. So those souls do not always transition straight to the bright white light ending amongst all those other souls who go into the spiritual dimension. No, there are other dimensions as well that we will go to. Dimensions that help us process what it is, the dissonant energies that we've obtained that become qualities of energy within our psyches as soul. And we'll talk about that in a future program. Much more different than the ghost stuff, though. So that's what we understand as ghosts as being. Ghosts are just particulate aspects of ourselves left behind. And we see them. I love those ghost watcher types of, those ghost finder programs. They're awesome. Some of them a little dry. Other ones fascinating, especially when they get the spectral forms. Oh, come on. The paranormal has to weave into this as well. And it does. We understand this through the spirituality of ourselves as souls as part of the operating system. But when you don't understand its relation, how it fits into the whole, then the anomaly can be quite disconcerting, quite disturbing. But when you contextualize it, when you place it within the wholeness of understanding, just like fear, you can see through it, through understanding. What you do with it, well, that's your choice, always. So I just wanted to touch upon ghosts for the closure of the program because, hey, it's Halloween, and what does it say? And one day we're going to personally have a show that really will kind of focus on the paranormal. I hope to find some guests that are very much involved in it, just for kind of an its and giggles, I call it. Kind of a program, but always with a sentiment, always with the purpose of helping you understand yourself as a soul, helping you see yourself through your spiritual eyes, helping you understand the life around you through your spiritual mind, the lesson you're living, the purpose you are on, the mission you seek to fulfill, the intention of the one you are being based on the conditions that you have. These conditions are your partners. When you can discern yourself from it, when you can be the wise one, observant of the conditions of the ego that you are operating through, knowing the language it speaks and not buying into the programming of the language, recognizing that, hey, I can hear this thought. I feel this feeling. What I do with it's up to me, like I said before in a prior program. It has been demonstrated through brain science that you neurologically coalesce a thought or you feel a choice through the brain upwards of 7 seconds before you're aware of it. 7-second delay, a buffer. You do not think the thought. You do not make that initial choice, so to speak. You are the chooser of what you do with a thought. You are the chooser of what you do with that choice. That is you. You are driving this car. You are here right now, my spiritual friends, my spiritual kin. And I thank you so ever much for joining me in tonight's show. Again, as always, this show is recorded, so you can find it at my Facebook page at Jonathan Yorks, MALMFTCHT. I'll be downloading it to YouTube, sending out a blast, and posting it on Facebook to let you know. I'll be putting it on, because it is a radio show, I'll be putting it on an iPod or an iTunes kind of podcast site as well. I'll be informing you of that. If you'd like to contact me, call me, ask questions, 617-875-6686, or go to my website, jonathanyorks.com, or mysoulmyself.com, and you'll get to the opening page, which is my PLR promo page. Just click on the home link or the contact page or any other link that you'll see there that will give you information, and you can always contact me through there and schedule a time to talk. They're complimentary, these initial telephone consults. I'm more than happy to talk with you. It's my pleasure. Okay. Once again, this is the Past Life Regression Radio Show. I'm Jonathan Yorks. We are here every Wednesday from 7 to 9 p.m. Next week's show, all about guides. It's the Guide Show. So tune on in, and we'll be talking all about the guides. I thank you very much for being with me in this show. I look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, be wonderfully well. And happy birthday, Mom.